One loss, that's all it takes, and your whole survivor pool is done. And the habit that feels safest actually cuts your chance of surviving nearly in half, from 4.1% to 2.1%. That habit is taking the biggest favorite every week. Sounds like a good plan, but there's actually a way to use the same schedule and the same game results and nearly double those odds. Those two numbers come from the real 2026 schedule and the real posted prices, run through a tool I built so every result can be checked. If you don't follow football, stay, because the mistake behind that gap shows up in any choice you only get to make once. Now, nobody guesses a single game differently. I'll show you the math behind these two numbers. The whole game is one sentence. Pick one team a week to win, get it wrong, and you're out. And you can only use each team once all season. That's the big catch. Doesn't sound complicated, does it? I learned this the hard way. 2 years ago, the Bengals were the biggest favorites in week 1, 7.5 points on the spread at home. They lost to the Patriots. That one game knocked out 34% of entries in the biggest pool in the country, and almost half my own pool, about 30 people. The next week, I picked the Ravens against the Raiders. Again, huge favorites. They lost on a field goal within about 30 seconds left. 2 weeks in, I was done. The mistake wasn't picking bad teams, it was solving this week instead of solving the whole season at once. And this is what stuck with me. I only got into football about 5 years ago. Growing up, I wasn't a fan at all, honestly. But living in Toronto, my friends were Detroit or Buffalo people, and I ended up being a Bills fan. My pool was full of serious football people. There were so many of them. Huge fans, watch every game, or a majority games, especially Sunday football. The person who won it knew basically nothing about football. That was the clue to me that it was more than just football. This isn't really a football knowledge problem. When I finally built the tool and let it see the whole season at once, it showed me exactly what I missed. If you've ever taken the option that felt obviously safe without checking what it costs you later, the burn order changes the question. Once you can see where the bill lands, the safest looking choice stops being so automatic and starts being something you have to think about a bit more. So a survivor pool looks like a weekly trivia contest or something. It's actually an 18-week budget almost nobody realizes they're spending. You get one guess a week and 32 teams to draw from ever. So a pick doesn't just have to win, it has to be worth more this week than it would be saved for a week you haven't gotten to yet. Nobody really thinks about it that way because the biggest favorite feels like the responsible choice. And it is for that 1 week. Taking the safest game on the board isn't lazy, it's the right answer to the wrong question. You asked what wins this week. The real question is what you're giving up by using it now. And there's also the part of if you pick not the biggest favorite and you do lose, you have to be able to stomach that and maybe the shame that might come with it from, people who don't know so much when they're looking at their pool. If you pick some underdog or not the biggest favorite, and I've seen that happen too. And that's a biggest thing that happens to a lot of people in these pools. This channel exists to run the actual numbers behind decisions everyone else just repeats. So here they are. Start with the part you can check on a phone. No schedule required. A posted price just means the odds the bookmaker is publicly offering on a game. The number you see before you bet. One of week 1's biggest games posted a price that works out to an 86.2% chance for the favorite. Take the fee out and the real number is 82.7%. The fee is called the VIG. In a lot of places, we're going to get out of that. That's the 3.5 gap in the bookmaker's fee. It's built in so both sides of the line add up to just over 100% instead of exactly 100%. So the house always wins. They have the house edge. Every posted price everywhere carries some version of that markup. Strip it out first, or every number you build on top of it is going to be wrong before you've started. Quick fairness check. Both paths get the same schedule, the same prices, and the same no reuse rule. Neither one sees a result before it picks. Pick the biggest favorite every single week and you clear the full 18-week schedule season 2.1% of the time. Solve for the actual best path instead. Same information, same rules, and it's 4.1%. Only 8 of the 18 picks are even different. 8 decisions carry the whole gap, nearly double your chances. This is where the bill gets written. Week 3, Detroit at home. A real posted price, 78.2% chance to win right now. Looks obviously safe, so the greedy path takes it. But Detroit's actual best week all season turns out to be week 14. At home, projected at 92.2% chance to win. Now, these odds can change as the season goes on, right? Between those weeks, an injury could happen. But spend Detroit in week 3, and by week 14, the greedy path has nothing left in that slot but a coin flip. New Orleans at Carolina, 53.9%. A coin flip you picked back in September without knowing it, and the bill lands in December. That's most of life, honestly, the amount of times things like this happen without us realizing. And that's the whole idea. A pick isn't a bet on this week, it's a withdrawal from every week after it. Call it the burn order. And it isn't the same thing as opportunity cost. Opportunity cost tells you what a choice costs you after you've already made it. The burn order asks the question you can still do something about. Is this the right week to spend this one? 18 withdrawals, 32 places to withdraw from. Every one you spend early is gone for later, whether you noticed spending it or not. 32 separate little accounts, one withdrawal each, no deposits, no do-overs. Spend the strongest one on an ordinary week because it happened to be sitting there and there's nothing left in it for the week you'll actually need it. One honest limit on that headline number I gave you. It's a full season figure. If your pool realistically ends by week 10, the gap almost disappears. Over 10 weeks, the greedy path is only about 3.6% worse. In a small pool, that's noise. This habit gets expensive specifically in a pool that runs deep, and some of those pools require you to start taking 2 teams as you get later on. I'd rather say that than the number oversell itself. So every single pick on that better 18-week path is at least 71.9% chance to win. Several sit in the 80s and 90s. The average across all 18 is 84%. Feels safe every single week on paper, right? String 18 of those together and the whole path only survives 4.1% of the time. Grab a calculator. 0.8, which is 80%, to the power of 18 is about 1.8%. 18 80% favorites in a row is roughly a 1 in 55 shot. Being right most weeks and being right every single week are 2 completely different problems. And the pool only pays out on the second one. None of this holds up if the tool pretends to know more than it does. When I pulled these numbers, only 51 of the season's 272 games had a posted price, roughly 1 in 5. I will be updating it, but at the time of making this, that's what we're looking at. Weeks 1 through 3 are priced. Almost everything after week 4 is a projection built off 3 years of results, and it's labeled that way on screen. Never dresses up a projection as a fact. It also doesn't know how many other people picked the same team you did. Nobody sells that number for free, so it doesn't pretend to have it. You can type in a guess anyway. Say most of the pool is on the same favorite. Moving off it into a less crowded team costs about 1/10 of a percentage point. Small price for not sharing your one elimination week with half the field. And sometimes that's a strategy in itself. But it's a guess you typed in, not a fact the tool knew. That's the whole case for stepping off the crowd's pick. Take the less crowded team, give up a fraction of your own odds, and you're still standing on the week the crowd gets wiped out. So for example, when I picked the Ravens and I was wiped out, there was a lot of people who had picked slightly less favorited teams and they were still in it, right? Now, if their team had lost and my team won, they might have felt the kind of way for not just picking the biggest favorite, but I picked the biggest favorite and they ended up moving on to get a better chance of winning it because that favorite got wiped out with a lot of people. And that's exactly what happened to everyone sitting on the Bengals in week 1 that year. One more honest thing, because it's the part that made me trust the tool. An early version of the solver handed me a safest path that only survived about 0.19% of the time, against a true best of about 0.2%. It looked right, but it was wrong. I caught it and rewrote it before any of this shipped. That's why I'd rather show you what the model doesn't know than pretend it knows everything, right? At the end of the day, I learned a lot building this myself, and the reason I built it was as a passion project and to give it more customization, because a lot of the tools out there are paid or just aren't the best, right? There's a lot of websites out there that you can do this with. And if you're that serious, some of them you can buy them and they'll really build it out for you. But anyways, sometimes it's good to just build your own thing and have the customization and just learn how to use it. You already know better. That's not the problem. Nobody actually believes the biggest favorite is a guarantee, right? You take it anyway because losing on a 90% favorite feels like bad luck. And losing on a team you're saving for later feels like it was your fault. What you're protecting isn't the season, it's your ego. And the explanation you'd have to give for it. That isn't bad instinct in itself. It's what a pool that scores you week by week does to anyone playing it straight. The fix isn't willpower, it's a different question. Not what's likely to win this week, but is this the best week I have to spend this? A lot of people just pick their favorite team. Like I said, I'm a Bills fan. Doesn't mean I should pick the Bills against the Houston Texans this year in week 1. I don't think that would be a good choice. Hope the Bills win, but Houston's defense is insane. again, some people just pick with their heart, and that's okay. It's just not going to be the best likelihood to win. Anyways, and sometimes you'll go a whole season without picking your favorite team if they just have no favorable matchups and there's always better teams to pick that week, right? So the person who actually wins one of these isn't the best forecaster in the group or the smartest or the biggest sports fan. Forecasting only ever answers this week. They're the one who spent their account in the right order. That's a different skill and you can learn it. And it can apply to things outside of football too, right? This can apply to a lot of things where you have to make a decision and you kind of have a one use thing, right? Same schedule, same games. Nobody guessed a single result differently. Almost double the odds of surviving the season just from spending the 18 picks in a different order. A pick isn't a bet on this week, it's a withdrawal from every week after it. Take that past survivor pools entirely because it isn't really about football, like I said. Anytime you get a one-shot choice with no do-over, whether it's which stock to buy first, which offer to take, or which team to burn in week 3, the question isn't, is this good? It's, is this the best week to spend it? That's a finance question wearing a football jersey. So if you're wondering why there's a football video on my channel, it's because I find it interesting and, was able to build a tool around it. But I also think that the burn order is applicable to things outside of football. And once you've seen it in a football pool, which is a lot easier to envision, you won't be able to unsee it in the rest of your money. That's the vantage point. Most people never stop long enough to see it. Drop a comment with the week you always burn your best team, or just tell me you pick your favorite team and hope for the best. If this shifted something, a like helps it reach someone who needs to watch the same thing. Subscribe for the next framework. The next video is already worth your time. And if you look right here on screen, that's the one YouTube thinks you should watch next.